Trump drops a bombshell in the Middle East by announcing a new ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah after Israel entered Lebanon, devastating the terrorist group's structures and pushing Iran into a much more uncomfortable position. This Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026, what we see is direct pressure on Tehran because Hezbollah has always been one of the Iranian regime's main proxies against Israel. Israel advanced into southern Lebanon, hit symbolic areas, pressured positions used by the group, and forced Trump to step into the center of negotiations to contain the escalation without giving Iran an advantage. What did Trump see? Why did Hezbollah rush to talk about a ceasefire? How did Iran's protege end up trapped in its own game? I'm about to tell you all of that. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. Israel imposed the siege after a series of Hezbollah attacks against northern Israel. The group, funded and armed by Iran, had been using drones, rockets, and positions in southern Lebanon to keep Israel under pressure. The Israeli response was not limited to airstrikes. Troops advanced into Lebanese territory, reached the Beaufort fortress near Nabateh, and began operating in an area of strong military and symbolic value. The region is located on high ground, overlooking parts of southern Lebanon and areas in northern Israel, from where attacks had been launched. The capture of Beaufort was significant because Israel had not controlled that location since its withdrawal from southern Lebanon in 2000. The move showed that Hezbollah lost ground in an area it had always promoted as a resistance stronghold. The group still attacks, still causes damage, still tries to show strength, but it can no longer prevent Israel from entering. Taking the high ground and turning the area into a security zone. That's where the narrative changes. The image they tried to spread was of Israel being cornered. The concrete fact is that Hezbollah was pushed into a situation where it had to ask for a ceasefire in order not to lose more ground. Netanyahu ordered the expansion of the military maneuver against Hezbollah because the group continued attacking even after previous attempts at a pause. The Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz argued that Beaufort should remain within an Israeli security zone in southern Lebanon. This shows that the operation was not just an emotional response. It was an attempt to create a buffer zone, push Hezbollah away from the border, and reduce the group's ability to target Israeli communities in the north. The problem for Hezbollah is that the very logic of the war has turned against it. For years, the group presented itself as Lebanon's shield against Israel. Now it appears as the direct reason for the Israeli advance into Lebanese territory. When Hezbollah fires drones and rockets, it gives Israel the justification to expand the operation. When Israel advances, the Lebanese government is exposed because it doesn't control the most heavily armed group within its own territory. And when the ceasefire is on the table, it becomes clear that those who created the crisis can't end it on their own. Trump got into this crisis without playing the fragile, weak role that old diplomacy used to play. He didn't apologize to Hezbollah, didn't treat the militia as a victim, and didn't put Israel on the same level as the Iran-backed terrorist group. Trump spoke with Netanyahu, held back a broader attack against Beirut, and announced that through intermediaries, Hezbollah had agreed to stop firing at Israel. The difference is simple. He let military pressure create fear in Hezbollah, but prevented the war from spiraling into a blow-up that would give Iran an excuse to abandon negotiations. Trump's message was calculated. Israel could keep pressuring southern Lebanon, but Beirut would not become the center of an uncontrolled escalation at that moment. This preserves Israel's advantage while at the same time backing Tehran into a corner. Iran wanted to use Lebanon as a bargaining chip. Trump turned Lebanon into a liability. If Hezbollah is really an arm of Iran, then the Iranian regime starts to pay the political price for each attack by the group. If Hezbollah accepts a ceasefire, it admits that the pressure worked. If it doesn't accept, Israel keeps a reason to hit harder. The announcement of the ceasefire came after officials connected to the Lebanese parliament informed the Trump administration that Hezbollah would be ready for a broad and immediate pause. This ceasefire was not born in a scenario of Hezbollah's victory. It was born after Israeli advances, pressure on Beirut, fear of new attacks, and the risk of a larger war involving Iran. Iran's son didn't ask for talks because he was comfortable. He asked because the pressure started to mount. Trump showed that he can allow pressure against Hezbollah without letting Netanyahu hand things over to Iran without a perfect excuse to set the whole region on fire. For those who understand power, it's negotiation with a knife on the table. Hezbollah tried to make up for losses with drones that are harder to intercept. These devices, some guided by systems that reduce vulnerability to electronic interference, have caused concern within Israel. Even so, the Israeli response was to seek physical control of territory. This changes the balance of the dispute. A drone can cause damage, but it can't hold territory. A rocket frightens communities, but it doesn't prevent a military force from taking a strategic point. The war in southern Lebanon showed exactly this difference. The Balfour Fortress also carries historical memory. In the 1980s, during the Israeli presence in Lebanon, the area was marked by intense clashes. Now, by raising its flag there again, Israel wanted to send a message both internally and externally. Hezbollah does not own southern Lebanon. The symbol matters because war is also communication. When a militia linked to Iran loses a symbolic point, it also loses part of the narrative it uses to recruit, intimidate, and dominate Lebanese politics. The Lebanese government was caught in the middle of the clash. On one side, Israel demands security and wants to push Hezbollah away from the border. On the other side, Hezbollah acts as a parallel force and pushes Lebanon into a war that the population did not choose. It is in this division that Trump found an opportunity. The American proposal for a ceasefire does not save Hezbollah from pressure. It forces the group to publicly commit to stopping the attacks. While Israel maintains positions in the south and continues to demand guarantees, Iran has understood the danger. Tehran threatened to cut off contacts with Washington if Israel continued attacking in Lebanon. This threat reveals Iran's dependence. The regime does not treat Hezbollah as a Lebanese issue. It treats it as its own asset. When Hezbollah takes a hit, Iran reacts. When Hezbollah asks for a pause, Iran calculates. When Trump holds Netanyahu back, Tehran realizes it is not dealing with a predictable president, willing to fall into a diplomatic trap. The move also helps explain why Trump announced the ceasefire after the destruction of an important part of Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure. The pause did not come before the pressure, it came after. First, Israel advanced, struck positions, occupied a strategic area, and exposed the group's vulnerability. Then Hezbollah signaled a willingness to stop. Then Trump stepped in to turn this retreat into a public message. This order of events changes everything. It wasn't Hezbollah imposing a condition. It was Hezbollah trying to save what it still could. Hezbollah, still trying to save what it could, moved by internal factions that want an even bigger offensive, had to listen to Trump. This shows where the real weight of the decision lies. Israel has military strength, but the United States holds the diplomatic, military, and political leverage that shapes the region. Trump doesn't need to show up shouting. He appears when he decides the limit of the attack, the tone of the negotiation, and the moment to announce that the shooting should stop. This crisis also shows a bigger problem in the Middle East. Armed groups supported by Iran operate as states within states. Hezbollah does this in Lebanon. The Houthis did this in Yemen by threatening routes in the Red Sea. Pro-Iran militias did this in Iraq and Syria against American bases and regional allies. The logic is always similar. Tehran avoids direct confrontation when it can use armed proxies to bleed its enemies. Iran's protege was caught between losing ground, losing the narrative, or accepting a pause edited by Washington. I'm Milson Alves, Global, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe, and check the comments at the end to engage more with the Milson Alves community.